Tinika Wyatt did more than just perform in the high-pressure environment of The Voice Season 27 playoffs. She also sparked a spiritual fire with her stunning performance of Mursime's I Can Only Imagine. As she gave a performance that was less of a song and more of a supernatural experience, the stage turned into her sanctuary, her voice became a sermon, and the crowd became her church. At the age of 32, this New Orleans-based dynamo, who has deep roots in gospel music and a heart that is full of faith, transformed a contemporary Christian classic into a 1,000-word testimony to inventiveness, resiliency, and the ability of music to touch the soul. Allow me to welcome you to the sacred ground of Tinika's moment, the one in which she led us to church and left us with a change that will last a lifetime. On The Voice, the playoffs serve as a testing ground, where contestants are required to reveal their true selves in order to advance. Tinika, a notable member of Team Reba, had already captured hearts in the blinds with her dominating alto and unshakable presence earlier in the tournament. Through the guidance of Reba McEntire, she had developed her talent for imbuing each note with meaning, pulling inspiration from a life that had been molded by the thriving music scene in New Orleans and the church choir that her family sang in. The selection of I Can Only Imagine, an anthem from 2000, and one that is about imagining heaven, was both a return to one's roots and a courageous step forward. A performer who could enhance the psalm without diminishing its veneration was required because of the song's simplicity, which consisted of a soft melody and lyrics that were introspective. Not only did Tinika rise to the challenge, but she flew to new heights. When the lights were turned down, the stage began to glow with a warm golden color, which evoked the feeling of a sunrise over a holy place. The set was simple, consisting of a single wooden cross that was draped in white cloth and flanked by candles that were flickering. This was done to acknowledge the spiritual heart of the psalm without dominating it. The gracefulness of Tinika was reflected in the flowing silhouette of her cream-colored gown, which she wore as she took the stage. The arrangement, which was developed in collaboration with the music team of The Voice, started off with a single piano whose chords were delicate yet resonant. Subsequently, a gospel choir and gentle strings were added to the melody. Tinika's voice was a revelation from the very first note she played, which exclaimed, "I can only imagine what it will be like." Her voice was warm and powerful, like a river that carried centuries of faith. The creative alchemy that Tinika displayed was what made her performance stand out. The original version of Mursime is a peaceful meditation, and its appeal lies in its lack of excess. In order to transform the song into a collective prayer, Tinika not only paid homage to that spirit, but she also imbued it with the fire of gospel tradition. Her language was impeccable, and she delivered each line with the rhythm of a preacher. Her voice rose with a vibrato that seemed like a heartbeat when she sang, "Will I dance for you, Jesus, or in awe of you be still?" She invited the audience into her picture of eternity by singing with a vibrato that sounded like a heartbeat. As a result of her genuineness, the coaches leaned forward, and the audience held their breath during the entire performance. The singing abilities of Tinika were very stunning. The lyrics were anchored by her rich, lower range, which gave them an earthy intimacy. On the other hand, her climbs into the upper notes, particularly on Surrounded by Your Glory, were sheer transcendence. Her every flourish was a declaration of her undying devotion. She did not rely on runs for flair. While she was singing the bridge, she layered harmonies with the choir, her voice weaving through theirs like a thread in a tapestry. She repeated the phrase, "I can only imagine," over and over again. Reba, who was present at the time and had tears in her eyes, referred to it as a moment where heaven touched earth later on. The words, "You didn't sing, you ministered," were spoken by John Legend, who was visibly moved. An excellent example of storytelling was provided by the performance. There was a profoundly personal connection that Tinika had to the song. During the rehearsals, she had revealed with Reba how her faith had helped her get through a difficult time in her life, which was the death of her mother when she was 19 years old, and how singing in church had been her safe haven. She channeled that trip by performing on stage. When her hands were raised during the chorus, it appeared as though she was reaching for something sacred. Her eyes, which glistened under the lights, conveyed a quiet strength on her part. It was not only a song that she sang when she questioned, "What will my heart feel?" It was a question that she had asked herself throughout her lowest points, and it was now being presented to the public as a presentation. From a visual standpoint, Tinika's performance was a reverent demonstration of simplicity. Over the course of the song's emotional progression, the lighting changed from golden for the verses to a bright white for the chorus to a deep amber for the finale, which evoked the feeling of being embraced by a holy being. There was a faint projection of clouds moving across the backdrop during the final stanza, which was a tribute to the heavenly imagery that was present in the song. Tinika came up with the idea, which was a creative touch that provided richness without becoming distracting. The cameras captured Gwen Stefani murmuring, "She's anointed," as Snoop Dogg was seen moving gracefully with his hands clasped together. Although the audience members came from a variety of religious and cultural backgrounds, they all felt as though Tinika had invited them all into her seat. Her brilliance was in her capacity to strike a balance between reverence and force. Tinika has never gone beyond the bounds of humility in her psalm, "I Can Only Imagine," which is a song of wonder rather than bombast. On the other hand, she imbued it with the audacity that her gospel upbringing had instilled in her, particularly in the outro, where she led the choir in a call and response, saying, "I can only imagine, yeah, yeah." It was not for the purpose of displaying her talent, but rather to testify, with each note being a declaration of hope. Taking a song that was already well-known and turning it into something completely new was an example of sheer inventiveness. The response was earth-shattering. A persistent imagine that appeared to linger in the air caused the audience to spring to their feet as Tinika's final note drifted away. Some of the audience members were wiping away tears, while others raised their hands in admiration. The performance was referred to as the performance of the season and a spiritual awakening by viewers of X. The trainers were quite enthusiastic. "You brought the church to us, sister," Snoop replied to their companion. It was described by Gwen as a gift from above. While up, Reba spoke with a voice that was cracking and stated, "You made me feel closer to God tonight." Tinika's unique creative vision encompassed more than just her voice. She had worked along with the music team to make sure that the choir was representative of her New Orleans history, and it included singers from gospel churches in the area. Additionally, she had collaborated with the lighting crew to produce a cathedral effect, as she referred to it, by employing light to simulate the appearance of stained glass. These decisions were not merely artistic, rather, they were deliberate, and they were a means of paying homage to her heritage and her beliefs. In her performance, she brought to light the fact that creativity is not solely about skill. Rather, it is about having a purpose. Tinika's performance in the playoffs of season 27 was a pivotal moment in the competition. She not only maintained her position, but she also reimagined what a moment on The Voice could truly be. The way in which she performed, "I Can Only Imagine," served as a connection between the world and eternity, as well as between her narrative and ours. It was an invitation to the audience to feel, to believe, and to envision something that was more significant